Hello, everyone. We are here for our Beyond the Message podcast series. This week, we started a new sermon series all about relationships.
We did.
And Scott, you let us in with boundaries. And today we have Tammy with us.
I know. We brought the heavy lifter in with us today, man. We're excited to have Tammy with us today and learn from her and be able to just, talk together about everything having to do with relationships, boundaries, Jesus, anything that comes up.
Yeah.
Nothing big.
It's going to be great. I'm excited to be here with you guys. It feels like we're at your house. Tammy, you always have coffee on at your house. It's always like a cozy place. Sit down, have a cup of coffee. But, okay, Scott, at the beginning of your message,
Yes.
You told a wild story about your ex-girlfriend asking you to be the man of honor in her wedding, which I also thought that was like a more recent thing that people were doing, man of honor, but apparently not.
So I'm old as well.
No, that's not what I was saying. Maybe. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But Tammy, I have to hear this story from your perspective. Tell us the man of honor story from the eyes of Tammy Chapman.
Well, I don't know that I remember it in as much detail as Scott, but I was just surprised when he told me that. And I don't know, I was just thinking, that's an intimate invitation. Mm-hmm. And what are you going to do? Are you going to throw her a shower? I mean, are you like, there's
party?
Implications to saying yes to this. And I'm trying to understand the relationship he has with his ex-girlfriend.
Yes.
And so it was just something to process. And that's what I really thought we were doing at the time. I was just processing this with my new husband,
Yes.
like, okay. And actually what he didn't say in the sermon is he actually did follow through with it.
Wait, what?
I did.
We came to this agreement, right? We were going to go to this wedding together.
I did not imagine that as part of the story.
Oh, yeah.
But he was going to fulfill this role, and, I was going to be there. And so it ended up working out just fine. We were in this space together. He did not have to throw her a shower or anything. It was in Cleveland, actually, and what I remember is it was actually cold.
Super cold.
And so I did get a new sweater out of the deal.
Okay.
So I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't dress appropriately, so I was able to go shopping. That made it all better. So
It always makes it better. It's an interesting story.
Isn't it, though?
Kind of a wild ask from the ex-girlfriend's perspective. Maybe she's listening to this. Probably not.
I'm going to go with no.
Okay, gonna go with no. But that is wild. Tell me, how did you end up going through with it?
Back in those days, if your friend asked you for something, you did it. And my inclination was to say yes. My inclination was to do it. And I felt like it would be a breach of hospitality to not do it.
That's a very nice way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so, we went through with it, and it was awkward. There was no doubt about it. It was an awkward reality. I think it also, when we went, I had been a Christian about 2 years maybe.
Okay.
And I think it was a part of my past.
Yeah.
And it was a super awkward time. I remember multiple parts of that where I knew that you and I had never been in my past. Mm-hmm. I had never taken Tammy for a journey into my past.
Yeah.
And this was sort of like a little bit of that, and I could tell it was difficult and awkward, and I felt bad about that. Mm-hmm. But it was wild in just about every way it could be wild, I think.
And honestly, we were just, after we worked it out, we were in that space. We were just trying to love people well, but I remember feeling pretty alone. That weekend. I didn't know anybody,
right.
And again, my husband's standing up as the man of honor for this ex-girlfriend, but
lest we forget that.
It will be mentioned forever.
Yeah.
But now it's a good story.
Yes. That's a really good story. I hadn't heard that one before, so
yep.
I loved it when you pulled that out. So tell me about, I've been married for 13 years. You guys have been married double plus that, 30 years?
37.
37.
This year. Yeah.
Wow.
37 this
That's amazing.
Isn't it, though?
Maybe longer than you've been alive.
A few years longer.
Yeah.
So I know in the 13 years I've been married, the boundaries journey we've been on
Yes.
has evolved. And it has been quite a journey to figure out how do we actually set boundaries, start not just with each other, but like with our whole life.
Right.
Tell me about that journey for you guys.
Yeah. How about the journey for you, Tammy? What has that been?
Well, any journey you're on with Scott is an adventure. And, buckle up. So that's what I would say. And that's probably part of what I really fell in love with. That was not my nature, to do life in that fashion. But there was something about Scott. And that was part of what attracted me to him. But I think early on in our relationship, boundaries became something real. I think Scott shared about just discovering how different we were in terms of, how we are going to navigate disagreements or a quote-unquote fight or something like that. But also, I think the bigger thing that came quickly into our marriage was our families and how to figure out how our marriage and relationship was going to work with our families.
And our families both had their really positive dynamics and had real serious issues, both families. It wasn't just one. The family I grew up in, there were some great people that were a part of that. My mom and dad were good people, but extended family was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And it... so rough that I had no imagination for bringing them into our family. And so I had made that decision. I shared that a little bit when I was 18 with my dad. And so I didn't share a lot of that story in the message. The conversation I had with my dad was colorful and was hard, but to his credit, he really handled it well and got behind that. So I brought that into our marriage as a young man who saw issues and used boundaries. Nobody ever taught me about boundaries, right?
Yeah, that's why I was curious.
Yeah, nobody in my family were good at boundaries.
Okay.
And so this would have been very contra to my family's way of doing things. And I just think that I had been on the receiving end of some things, and I saw my mom get hurt a lot, and it really bothered me. And I just wasn't going to bring that into my marriage, my family, my life.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was the most mature way to do it.
Yeah.
I think it could have been done a lot better, but my dad could accept it, and I really appreciated that. But I brought that into our marriage, and I don't think you necessarily had. You had a very different reality. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, really, we couldn't have been more different.
Yeah.
Scott's parents, they'd been married for many, many, many years. My parents got divorced when I was 4, and my mom got remarried when I was 10. She and her new husband moved out, left me to be raised by my grandma from that point on. And then the summer that I met Scott, or the spring before I met Scott, my grandma died. And so my mom had moved back into the house that I was living in with my grandma. And so for the first time in like 8 or 9 years, I was living with my mom again.
Wow. And
I had become a Christian in that time. And so I was trying to figure out, what do I do with this relationship with my mom? I always wanted that relationship to be good, and it wasn't. It was broken for many, many years. But now that I was living with her again, I was trying to work on that. And, of course, dealing with the loss of my grandma. And then we get married. And so that's what I brought into our relationship, is I wanted to figure out how to make my relationship with my mom work.
Yeah.
How do I forgive her? How do we reconcile? How do we get along? And so it was just a different... I was looking for something different than what he was looking for from his family. And so I brought that in, and he brought that, and it just was very different. And so we had a lot to work out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you were looking for a connection.
Yes.
And you were seeing a need for some disconnection, which is very opposite.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And it was an area where I learned a lot from Tammy, I think, over the years. Tammy was amazingly godly and good and patient with her mom, and took a lot of things onto herself that was really hard for 20, 30 years, really. And I think for me, I had made the opposite decisions with that.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to watch that. I learned a lot from that, and I think I was changed by that in a very good way.
Yeah.
I also think I added some value to that.
For sure. Like I was thinking a little bit about this. Again, nobody ever taught me about boundaries either. But I was not good at setting them. And especially with my mom, which is kind of strange because when somebody hurts you again and again and again, you would think you would set a boundary so that that didn't keep happening. But there was just something inside of me that was struggling to set a boundary with my mom because I think for me, I couldn't imagine hurting her. I didn't want to hurt her. And I did not, well, honestly, I think I just didn't want to be rejected again.
Yeah.
And so if I set this boundary, somehow that was going to hurt her. She would reject me. And I'm in that cycle,
Absolutely.
of pain and struggle that I wanted out of so desperately, And so, so it just made that fear of rejection from my mom, it made setting a boundary with her really hard.
Yeah.
But I think, Scott was always stepping in, trying to help me see where it would be helpful.
Yeah.
And there were times where he actually did help me set some boundaries. Like things, became broken to a state where a boundary really needed to be set, especially when we had kids, just to protect them. And so it was very helpful to have him there supporting me and helping me figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think kids added into the mix always makes you realize a little bit more. I remember Blake and I, we became, we both knew Jesus growing up, kind of walked away from him in our college years. And when we were married, discovered Jesus again together. And so that was like a really beautiful thing for us in our relationship and our marriage. But I remember, I didn't grow up really with the idea of boundaries either. But being taught, early on in that Christian journey together, kind of priorities and how priorities can help you set boundaries that can help your relationship flourish. And I just remember learning the priority of God first, then your spouse, then your children, then your work, then everything else, right, comes after it. And I remember that being so oh yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, revelatory for me, and helping me start to create some health in my life because I am a yes person. I want to do everything, I want to make everybody happy. But I remember learning that early on in our marriage, and that just being so helpful for us.
And if you think about it, that's a really good way to learn it, I think, because it's principles that I think kind of make sense to most people.
Yeah.
And you kind of enter into it, but then you realize really quickly, if you live it out, these don't always work.
Yeah.
And there's things that come from one over into the other.
100%.
And you have to cut an edge on that.
Yes.
And that's the boundary.
Yes.
And so you kind of backdoor it. You know what I mean? And it's not just man, I want to set boundaries in my life, but you start to do things and you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And I got to figure that out. And I think that's where this idea of a boundary can come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what you just said, Scott, it makes me think about what do we do when our boundaries don't work? We set a boundary that we think is a good idea, but there's other people involved in this boundary setting process. Boundaries aren't just applicable to ourselves. They usually involve another person, people, party, whatever. And so they can get broken and breached, and that doesn't always feel good to us.
No. And I think this, one of the things that I wanted to talk about but didn't have time in the message is that boundaries are an art and not a science.
That's good.
And so there's not a set of rules that you can apply to your life that gets boundaries right. If I do that and that and that, there are some principles that we talked about in the message, but they're principles. They're not really rules. They're not really this formula that if you do that. Boundaries are an art form, meaning the persons that you're setting boundaries with matters. are these people who generally do life well and you respect and you want to be in relationship with them. I think it would make some sense to have a conversation about that and to try to do it together. And you could find a month into it, it doesn't work. But it's not somebody's fault. It's just you didn't think of some things. And you're going to have to refine that or make that better. Or life has shifted. You have a baby.
Yeah.
You know, or you start realizing, oh, that worked then, but it doesn't work now. And it's not like it's somebody's fault or that somebody's doing that wrong. But that can be a cooperative process. Sometimes there's somebody who's not living life well. And they may be a great person, but they're not living life well right now. And their not living life well has come into your life and it has made you not live well.
Yeah.
And in that, they're probably not going to receive this with any kind of joy.
Yeah.
And so in that, again, I'd be gentle and I would be patient and I would attempt to do that, but I wouldn't be looking for affirmation from that person.
Right.
I'd be looking to be able to do the right thing in the moment, to be able to live the life that we would want to live down the road.
I think that's a really important point. And I think for those people who are like me and you struggle to tell a person no or to set a boundary because you feel guilty, you know, in that relationship for some reason, like you just have to work that out with Jesus too, to be able to realize their happiness, maybe they don't know the Lord.
Yeah.
Doesn't all revolve around you or depend on you. Like, I can trust that the Lord is going to work in this person's life.
Yeah.
Even if I tell them no and that doesn't feel good to them, and that he's going to work in my life.
Right.
You know, and so there's this like healing side of things that comes into the light, you know, are places where we need to be healed.
Absolutely.
When we are trying to set boundaries. And I just think to pay attention to that and give that time and to work through that, that kind of happens simultaneously with the whole thing of figuring out what to do in this relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
No, absolutely. No, it absolutely does. And I think, too, there are folks who just don't think about you even though they're in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
I have a guy that calls me every single Monday, even though he knows that's my Sabbath. And I've told him that I can't tell you how many times, but you know who I'm talking about.
I do. Phone rings. I know who it is.
You know, right around 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning, I can expect to get a call. And and so
awesome.
I have chosen now not to answer it.
Yeah.
And I've told him why. And so now when I don't answer, he leaves me a message. Oh, that's right. It's your Sabbath thing. And by using the term thing, you know,
He's minimizing it a little bit.
He's minimizing it a little bit, but I still let him. I don't explain it. I don't apologize for it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to call him on Tuesday morning. I'm happy to be his friend. I'm happy to do lots. I'm not looking to exclude him from my life. But I do need a Sabbath, and that's part of what I'm trying to do. And I think there's a lot of boundaries like that in it, and also I think that people are different, and I think that's the other art form in this. Like, none of us is the same, and the level of chaos that my wife can take is so much in excess of the level of chaos that I can live in. Like, one of the things that, if you come to our house, our garage is usually pretty well put together.
You should come to my house and put my garage together, because it's not.
But there's a very selfish reason that our garage is
my husband's domain.
And I want to, when I come home, one of the things that gives me great peace is when I pull into the garage, I think there's at least something in the universe that is where I left it. Because normally my job is relatively chaotic.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I might walk into some chaos as I go in, and there's just something about that. If I pull into our garage and it's just complete chaos, that I feel like my life is out of control. Even though I know that is stupid and it's small and concrete, there's something about that that gives me peace. And there are things like that in our life that, if you know yourself, you can put in place that can help you function.
Yeah.
And so for me, pieces of order are actually unbelievably helpful.
Totally.
To me.
You said something in your message, and it was a larger point of the boundaries are there so that we can have freedom.
Right.
And I loved that point. And I think as I was processing your message afterwards, I think there's this piece of our relationships also work best when we bring our free self
Yes.
into them. And so creating the boundaries that actually help us like live in that freedom are really important.
Right.
And I think so many times like personality or different things can tell us that's selfish.
Right.
And it's actually not. It's actually like a way that you can love other people is
Right.
like helping you have those things that let you live in the freedom, like Sabbath
Right.
on a Monday.
Right.
You know, because that helps you connect with God, and that goes to the priorities thing, which goes to everything.
Right.
But you have to be able to live in that, to be able to actually be a good friend to someone or a good spouse to someone,
Yeah.
or a good, whatever
Totally.
to whoever it is.
Yeah. And I think when you look at particularly the relationships you're trying to cultivate and bring into, the middle portions of your life that are significant, right?
Yeah.
In those, it's great to talk about those things together. It's great to look at it because you do want everybody to be able to be their free self.
Yeah.
Not just you, but
Right.
everybody. And so in that, there's concessions all of us make, right, in order to do that because we want to be in a relationship and we want to be able to do that. And I think that that's how, one of the things that I have just seen, and this is probably being old, as you were saying before,
I'm never going to hear the end of that.
is I have seen the general maturity in relationships decrease over time. Mm-hmm. And we have come to a place in our society where it is unbelievably challenging for us to be in relationships with people we disagree with.
Yeah.
Or people who have a different point of view. And I just think that's a loss. And I think that it's a loss to not be able to work that out. It's a loss to not be able to enjoy each other and even be able to say, hey, we can't talk about that because we're going to get into it if we talk about that. We don't agree on that, but we agree on a lot of other things and we have a good relationship, in that. Or you can just, if you're braver, dive in and let that person go down 2 levels. And a lot of times I'll ask the question, tell me again why you think that's true. Or tell me again, like, why is that important to you?
Yeah.
Or you're feeling something really deep in this moment. Tell me about that. Mm-hmm. Like, why does this make you feel that way?
Yeah.
And minimally, it gives me an appreciation for what that person is thinking or doing. And I just think we can do relationships better than what we're seeing out modeled for us in society at this point, and have a more freedom and just a greater sense of joy in that.
Yeah.
This is sort of left turn.
Yeah.
Is that okay. Our kids, I love to listen to them think.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess before we drew the left turn.
And we taught them to be free thinkers.
Yes, this is something I really do love about our family is there's not we all are very strong-willed.
We do.
And so,
Every
can't
single
imagine.
one. I am the least strong-willed among us.
yeah. And we're a little bit competitive.
Yeah.
But I do love that all of our kids can express themselves and what they think. And I love that they think about what they think. They aren't just giving some off-the-cuff opinion. All of our kids actually take time to think about things deeply and form their thoughts, over time and are able to share that. And so we do have some very differing opinions about things in our family, but we are still able to talk about them with a lot of passion, but come out on the other side loving one another and respecting one another. And so I do really love that. But the left turn was I also really love the fact that our kids will sometimes come and talk about a struggle that they're having, especially a relational struggle or a boundary type struggle. And something that Scott I've heard him say this to them many times and to others. And so I wondered if you would just talk about this a little bit, is just, is the relationship more of a friendship where it's like a two-way type of thing, or is it more of a ministry?
Yeah.
And I think that has been helpful to our kids. It's been helpful to me in terms of how to see the person in front of me and what the relationship is. So it helps me have an understanding of what the boundaries are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, I do. One of the things that I think what I think you're referencing is, I always tell them, as Christ followers, we are to love everyone and to serve everyone around us, and that's exhausting.
Yeah.
Energy's going out, not coming in, right? And what you do is you literally love people and treat them as better than yourself. And then when you find someone that treats you back in the same way, that's an opportunity for a relationship.
Yeah.
And if they just take it and say thank you, it's an opportunity for ministry. And so you need to understand the difference between ministry and community.
Yeah.
And so ministry is when we get a chance to pour into others, and we don't feel bad about that, or we don't judge them for that. We just do that. But then when we see someone who responds to that back to us in the same way, it's an opportunity to go deeper, or it's an opportunity to have a different type of relationship with two people who are willing to be selfless in a relationship, and it sparks something.
Yeah, and I think that helps us know like what we're expecting from the person, which in a sense is an emotional boundary.
Yeah.
Right? Like, am I expecting something that is fair to expect from this relationship? And so that's been very, very helpful.
Yeah. And I think life exists with all these different kinds of relationships. Like, you can't just have one type.
No.
You'll be proud of me, I think.
All right.
I had like a little science nerd moment.
Hey!
But it was like 5th grade science nerd. It was not like anything extreme. But I thought about symbiotic relationships.
There you go.
In an ecosystem where like one or more of the organisms benefit. And when both are, it's mutualism. And that's like what we would say is I would think like desired relationship, right? Yep. We're in relationship with someone and we're both benefiting from this. I'm offering something to you, you're offering something to me.
Right.
We're happy.
Totally.
And then there's the commensalism, which is where one is benefiting more than
go.
the other. I know.
Look at you go.
I was like, Scott is gonna love that I thought of this. But then then
there's parasitic.
There is. Yes. But the commensalism's like the ministry relationship, right? But in ministry, it becomes our joy to pour into someone.
Yes.
And that's where you need the Holy Spirit, and that's where you need God and all of that.
Yeah.
Then there's a parasite relationship where an organism is feeding off the other organism and just sucking the life out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like those are the relationships. That's the reason we create boundaries.
Right.
Because you can't live in that kind of relationship. And
Right.
it's not healthy for the other person actually either. A parasite
Right.
loves it. But
right.
in a human relationship, it's not healthy to be a parasite.
Exactly. But like in those three, you can both benefit, or one can benefit and one is not harmed.
Yes.
But then in one, there's a situation where one is harmed. And that's a different situation. And I think that is, I think you're right. I also think about John 17, where, Jesus is talking about the Trinity and us, and us, our interaction. And he said, God, help them to be one the way we are one.
Yeah.
Let them be one as we are one, and one with us and one with each other. And there's a radical unity that comes out of that. And when we think about it, that unity is only possible by a shared approach and values and perspective to enter into that.
Right.
And I think that boundaries, even in that, can be seen as a temporary way of putting training wheels on something to help it grow into what that could be.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I think that's where I've grown in boundaries too, is I've realized it doesn't have to be forever and ever, amen.
Yeah.
It can be, hey, for this season, in this space, in this way, right now, I've got to opt out of that. But it doesn't mean forever, or it doesn't mean that I can't relate with you at all, or it just means that we have to put a little bit around it.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like you said, it becomes the art form.
Yep.
And if it's not an art form, the boundary then becomes a wall.
Right.
And a wall's not great.
Exactly.
It's probably not going to come down.
Right.
Right?
How would you define the difference between a boundary and a wall?
I was thinking about that. I feel like a boundary is more, like in my mind when I visualized it, a boundary is more like a fence. I can kind of see through it a little bit. You know, there maybe is a gate there or something. But there's stuff moving in and out of it. A wall is like I'm in there by myself.
Yeah.
And it's designed to keep me in and everything else out.
Yeah.
And so it to me,
that
like,
sounds lonely.
And it's like isolation.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that sometimes, especially now in like the like self-care society that we kind of have and culture that we kind of have, it's really easy for our boundaries to become walls.
Yeah.
And for
That's
us
really
to
good.
set them forever.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you kind of warned against, like don't
Yeah.
set these forever.
Right.
Because we do become inward focused,
Yep.
the best me. And our freedom becomes all about, you know, just for my benefit and
Yeah.
not for the benefit of the others, which is where I think like Jesus comes in.
Yep.
Right. And he's like, no, I'm freeing you so that you can set others
Yeah.
free as
think-
well.
I think too, for me, when I think about a boundary versus a wall, if you put up a wall, it's easier to just stop caring about the person.
That's so
or
good.
Stop caring about the relationship. Where
Yeah.
a boundary, you actually still care.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's just emotionally sometimes it's really hard to continue to care.
Yes.
You want to be, sometimes that's exhausting, you know, so you just are looking to get out from under the heaviness, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But I think continuing to care is really important.
Yeah.
And so just for me, there's a difference there.
Yeah, I love that. And Scott, you said like this, like boundaries help you care. Like they give you a place to set down that heavy load.
Yeah. For me, it's not like dropping the relationships, which is what I was trying
Yeah.
to say, like the rocks that you're carrying.
Totally.
But you can have a table
Yeah.
and you can kind of just take a minute and rethink it and decide how you're going to carry it differently. And there can be, again, things that there are literally relationships just because this person may not mean to, but they are bringing a lot of destruction
Yeah.
into your life. And you may need to just say, for now, maybe we can see each other at Christmas, or maybe we can, you know,
Yeah.
text each other or do whatever. But I'm not, you know, like I remember when I first came to Christ, I had all the same group of friends, and we've discovered a little bit about my group of friends in this message. But they were, I ran with a pretty wild bunch of people. And I remember when I would try to join them in their life because I wanted them to come to Christ. I wanted them to know what I had known. The first time I ever did that, I went to a bar and I drank too much. And I never set out to do that. I never imagined I would do that. On the back side of it, I felt horrible that I had done it. And I felt like, you know, I overcompensated and felt like I completely blew my witness up and I have just now destroyed, you know. But the reality was I didn't blow up my witness entirely in that. But I also, I knew that couldn't be what I was doing.
Right.
And for some of those guys, they adapted really well to that, and we did fine.
Yeah.
And we could go do other things. We could go play racquetball or play golf or do some other things or shoot some baskets and hang out. And, you know, for others of them, they could not.
Yeah.
And this was so deeply part of their life that was the only way that they could express friendship.
Yeah.
And so in that, it became really hard. And it was one of the first hard decisions I had to face in that. But I think as a young Christian, if we're going to really go full out for Jesus, which is what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
you're going to make hard decisions. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be great with it and are going to be able to do that with you. Even if they don't fully come with you, they'll applaud that and go with you. But there's going to be sometimes relationships that are just going to force us to say, I don't know that I can go there with you.
Yeah. And I think that can be really hard for people. You recommended like a list of books in your message, and one of them was Good Boundaries and Goodbyes by Lisa
Which is the one I hadn't read, but people
I haven't read it either.
But people recommended it, and so I just thought I would include it in the list. But
But the title caught my attention. Have you read it, Tammy?
It did me
I've
too.
not.
Yeah, because it made me just think about how hard it is for us to make that kind of finality decision of like, this has to actually be goodbye, because at this point, like, it's not helping me be the best version of myself or be the best version of myself for other people or whatever it is. And I think
it had the most compelling title, though.
It was a really good title.
I thought that too, yeah.
I think it's hard. I mean, we're in conversations as pastors with people a lot of like, hey, I'm in a bad relationship with my parents or my family or a really good friend. And how do we help people see where it's time to set a boundary and when it is time to say like goodbye?
Yeah, that's super hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you say, Tammy?
None of you saw the eye roll there. That's a
We're not
tall
on camera.
order.
It is,
No,
yeah,
because
it's
I
hard.
think you are so long-suffering and loving to people. That's why I'm
Yeah.
asking. Because I value what you do, and I respect you in that.
I honestly feel like there could be something even wrong with me. Like,
That's a different podcast.
I just feel so convinced that our God is filled with compassion
He is.
and grace. And that's what I want to offer people to the end. Like, and so for me, I just have always leaned toward, I would rather be the one then that just gets hurt if that's what comes on the other side of it. I don't know that that's always really what happens on the other side of it.
Right.
This is like, fantasy thinking.
Yeah.
But that's what's in my heart behind just never cutting somebody off. Is I just want to be gracious and compassionate like Jesus has been with me. And I also just believe in the power of God to restore and redeem.
Yeah.
My relationship with my mom was so hurtful and broken for almost my entire adult life and childhood, but I became aware of it as I got older, with an adult brain. But 3 years before she died, we actually reconciled. And I don't have time to tell you the whole story, but like what we had wasn't as deep as some of my other relationships are with my friends who love Jesus the way that I do, or my relationship with my husband. But we had a real relationship that was much more healthy and that wasn't hurtful for those 3 years. And so I just, this is what my hope is for people and for relationships, and why I just struggle to cut them off. But I do know that sometimes that really does have to happen.
Yeah.
Like I see, it's not hard for me to understand that in my head. I just, for me, don't know that I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I would literally need somebody to help me do that, because, and I actually have, I haven't fully cut out anyone, I don't think, from my life, but like I have had to, a few times Scott helped me, and I cut my mom out of my life for periods of time. And there have been some friendships where I've had to understand, I need to see this friendship for what it actually is.
Yes.
Not what I am imagining it to be. And it's not as two-way as what I thought. And what this person is telling me and saying to me is not matching their actions. And so I have, I guess I've allowed some, I haven't cut the person out of my life, but I have changed how I view them. And it has therefore affected how much I'm seeing them and how much a part of my life they are. And so it's very different. And I had to grieve. I grieved.
Yeah.
I had to go through a lot of grieving, that this relationship wasn't what I thought it was. And so I'm not, instead of pretending, and just keeping something that isn't real, I've tried to live in that reality. And, I just haven't engaged in that relationship as much anymore. So I don't know now.
Yeah. No, and I love and I love and respect you in that we grew up really differently. I never felt protected as a child. And I grew up fighting, and I grew up protecting myself. And so when I was 18, I was very used to being my own protector. And when I am, my nature, part of my nature is to protect my family, to protect our church, to protect, what that is, and to stand between whatever is coming and them. And that just is that's just something that God put in me in difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think in that it's a different way of thinking sometimes. And there is times, in my view, if I could just provide a complimentary view to what you said, there are simply times in our family's life, and it's not necessarily your mom or whatever, but there have just been times where people, and I'm like, no, that's it. And I'm not judging you. I'm not, but no. Right. And this is where that ends. And you should know there's an end. And I'm telling you, it's here. Yeah. And I think that is necessary. And we live in a world where really bad things can happen.
Right.
And part of, I think, a husband and a father's job in general is to make sure, hey, you know what? I am here. I'm not going to treat people bad or whatever or be a jerk, but I am here, and I'm going to be the person in charge of saying what comes in and what comes out.
Right.
And I think that there are times that you just have to make a hard call, and it's super hard, and it's not fun, and people aren't going to like it. But you watch. There was just things I watched my children thrive, and I knew they wouldn't thrive if I hadn't have made some of those decisions.
Yeah.
And that's its own reward.
For sure.
So, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I loved that picture that you painted now and also like this weekend of male headship. Of the house, of it actually being the male's job, and kind of, I mean, you took a quick look at that passage. You didn't dive into it super far, but just like, hey, this is actually our job as men,
right,
to help our house flourish and to help our family flourish. And this isn't about being authoritative or dictatorship.
Right.
And I just thought that was such a beautiful picture, because it's not saying like as women that we can't set boundaries or we can't make those calls for our family. Like we can and we do like at really important times. But I think that you get to be kind of like the surveyor of all. Yeah. You see everything happening, right? Yeah. And you can say like, you are the protector. Yeah. In that sense. And that matters. That's a role that matters.
It really does. We have really messed up manhood in America, I think pretty badly in two directions. I think one, we have emasculated men to the point of where it's unrecognizable to be a man at this point in time. And as I talk to young men in their early 20s in particular, they haven't had role models. Many of them haven't had a dad. Many of them haven't had anybody that's 30, 40, 50 sit down with them and just say, hey, son, it's okay to feel these ways. It's not okay to feel these ways. Yeah. This is how you treat women and children. This is, you've not been given strength for yourself. You've been given strength for others. And that you are to be selfless. Yeah. And part of that, and we have a toxic masculinity of where you just run over everybody and talk over everybody, and there's a narcissistic center to that. That's not what God is talking about at all. Right. But there is a legitimately strong, godly manhood that you can bring into a situation, and honestly, love people really well out of that. And I think part of that is, again, what I said this weekend is that the context of male headships in the context of mutual submission. Yeah. When both people are submitted to God and both people are submitted to one another. And I think, like, I don't think I have ever set a boundary for our family that we never talked about.
Yeah, I can't
remember. Like I just, my first conversations with Tammy, and just be able to say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this, or this feels out of control to me. I'm a little nervous about this. How do you feel? Yeah. And I want that. I want to hear from her in that. She has a lot of wisdom. And I know she's going to be coming from a position of great compassion. And so I want to hear from the position of great compassion before I do anything. Also, there's been probably one time in our life where I just said, I know we're not fully there, but I'm going to make the call. It has been almost never in our...
There's probably been more than one.
More than one. Probably more than one. How many would you say?
I mean, probably I could count them on one hand. But,
okay, there's probably...
I can think of a couple.
Yeah, probably. But, yeah, so probably 5 or less in 37 years. So we'll go with
That's
one.
Pretty good.
So I think one. So I'm going to go with one.
This is one of those times.
This is one of those times, yeah. And so, yeah. Exactly. But there has not been many in 37 years of where I'm like, I don't know that we see eye to eye on this, but I feel strongly enough about it to move forward. Yeah. And what I always would say is, if I'm wrong, I'm going to call it out that I'm wrong, and I'll reverse course. Yeah. But I feel like we've got to be able to do that. And those have only been in times when I felt something was in jeopardy, that there was some cost on the other end that I didn't think our kids should pay, or that I didn't think Tammy should pay on that. So, but yeah.
And I think if I think about 37 years of marriage, two very different people. Yeah. Living together and remaining committed to one another, and actually still really liking each other and enjoying each other. It really is, when you think about like, why? How is it that we're still here? And I really think both of us remaining committed to Jesus,
Yes.
individually, throughout that time has been like, I watched Scott's relationship with God. That's what actually gives me confidence, even when we're disagreeing, even when I don't like something that a way he's thinking about something.
Yeah.
I know his history with Jesus, his commitment to Jesus, and it really makes a huge difference. And I know not everyone is blessed to have a marriage, where that's the case, but I'm very grateful. It has made the difference for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most beautiful things. When you're in a marriage and you both love Jesus, one of the most beautiful things about it is getting to watch the other person continually come alive to God and just seeing that like personal growth in them and like how Jesus is transforming them, like, and continues to transform them time after time. And then they can speak that back into you as well of like, hey, this is where I've seen how Jesus is transforming you. I know that for our marriage, that has been like a rock that has held us together, is being able to call that out and see that for each other. Because sometimes you get stuck and you're like, I don't know if I'm good or what, you know. But it's really beautiful. I was wondering, as you guys were talking, and this is a little bit of a left turn from boundaries, but like the idea.
Going back to end times?
Yeah, going back to end times. When is Jesus coming? Seriously.
Well, I have the date.
But like the journey of male headship in the house, was that an easy one for you guys, or was that one that you kind of had to work out as you went on? Is this too deep of a question? Because I can left turn again.
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's silence there. I don't know, right?
I mean, it was a journey.
100%. Still is.
Yeah. I think you were the person that was the first person that ever talked to me about that. So I came from an egalitarian perspective where there almost a unisex perspective where there was literally not a lot of difference.
Really? Okay.
In that, coming out of a secular perspective. But I had, my mom and dad had a very, very tumultuous relationship and how they worked out their differences. And so in that, my mom would have most of the words.
Okay.
And my dad would get angry and that would end it. And so I had that model, I think, in that. And like my dad was never physical with my mom or anything like that, but he would get, and when my dad got angry, I mean, the birds stopped chirping. The crickets went home. Like it was over now, And I think for me in that, I kind of had that understanding, and it was patriarchal in that sense. My uncles, my dad, my grandfather, you came from a matriarchal family of where the women were in charge and the men were subservient. And honestly, it was very confusing for me. When we were dating and I was watching that happen, it was a very confusing reality. And I'm like, I don't know why we're doing what we're doing in the midst of this. And you had two things that I don't think God was in, and you're coming together.
Yeah.
And Tammy had been a Christian longer than I had, and she was talking about how the Bible talks about this, which was so different than anything.
Yeah.
And so I think we learned together. One of the things that we always would say is we were the first generation out of Egypt. And so we were the first free people of God in our families. And so we needed to learn how to live free.
Yeah.
And we needed to learn that. None of us knew. We didn't know. Neither of us knew. And so we learned together in that. And I think we had to be open. And Tammy's been great for me in, the thing when you're a protector, sometimes fear can get away from you. And you overprotect. Sometimes when you're a fixer, which is, I don't know if that's what I would call you, but that could sound terrible, like you work for the mafia. But I that's not what I mean by that. But somebody who is long-suffering and stays in relationships and is willing to take the pain on themselves and all of those things. I think that the downside of that is sometimes you're not helping the other person.
Right.
And so the reality is both of us have things that the other person can say, hey, I'm not sure about that. I'm not, and we do. And I think that's been healthy to grow up into that. And I think having a son first was helpful because it forced me to think about what am I going to teach him, and what am I going to choose to not teach him from my own experience, from what how do I have to do this in that? But
Yeah, it's definitely something you continue to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're married to a human being.
Yeah.
And they're married to one too.
Yeah.
And so it's always about trust.
Yes.
That place of headship on both parties. And being able to really have a relationship where you are working together and trusting one another in living that out.
Yeah.
And really trying to live out the priorities you share.
Yeah.
That's really what you're striving for. How do we live out our love for Jesus, the priorities he brings into our lives, considering one another and submitting to one another and deferring to one another.
Yeah.
And that's never simple.
Yeah.
And it just, we continue to have to work that out.
Yeah.
Your kids grow, you grow, life
Totally.
changes. And so the expression of that and what it looks like, it's just an ongoing thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think when you brought up trust, I think trust is so hard for our society now.
Yeah.
There's the question of like, what can we trust? How do we actually put trust in something and exercise trust? And I think it's obviously in a marriage that becomes a very special thing, but trust really plays into our relationships a lot.
100%. When trust, I don't even say it's gone, but when trust is wounded, a whole different set of dynamics begin to play, and control. You have to gain control, and both parties begin, instead of to play the game to give away themselves to each other, they start to play the game to protect themselves or control the chessboard, and a whole different set of relational dynamics comes into be, and trust is a massive thing, and trust can be given too early and too quickly.
Yeah.
It isn't something that should be a first date kind of reality.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, we should get to know people a little bit before we trust them.
Yeah.
And I that's sad. I mean, I wish it wasn't true. And someday when the kingdom is fully present, it won't be true. And,
Right.
we can go meet somebody for coffee for the first time and be able to have complete trust. But
Yeah.
right now, that's probably not true.
Right.
And we need to be careful with that.
Yeah, you brought up the passage, I think it was John 2, maybe, of Jesus not trusting the humanity
Of Jerusalem. Yeah.
And in people.
Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't think that passage had ever like really caught my eye in that way before, but it really popped out to me.
Yeah.
And kind of like, hey, I'm not going to let you determine
Right.
who I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah. And Jesus, I mean, the reality is he could see the visible and the invisible in that. And so he was making, in a sense, a perfect decision where we don't get a chance to do that. Like, we make very imperfect ones. But he was looking at it, and he was also modeling, like, I don't think that was a permanent forever and ever, amen. But he was saying, right now in this moment, I don't think you're being honest emotionally.
Yeah.
I'm not receiving you as emotionally honest. I'll take the praise that you're giving to me, and I'll bless you, and I'll teach you, I'll help you, I'll do it. But I'm not going to take you to the inner circle with me. I'm not going to bring you into my life in that way.
Yeah.
And I just think that, I think there's a Christianity that has no room for that. And I think we have to be careful of that Christianity. And I think we have to be able to say everybody has broken spaces. And it's not blanket, I trust you or I don't.
Yeah.
One of the things people always say, do you trust this or do you trust this person? My answer will always be, I trust you to be who I know you to be. And that is a way that I am, in a sense, saying I have gotten to know you and I'm trusting that you are as I know you to be. which doesn't mean I carte blanche trust you or I don't. I trust you in some ways with some things, but not others. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how God sees me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you ask, Scott, God, do you trust Scott Chapman? He goes, I trust him to be who I know him to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a more mature way of taking a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in society there's like a couple of ways, I guess, that I've looked at trust. Like you can either live on this like kind of sliding scale where you start at 0.
Right.
And then somebody earns their way up to 100% trust, or maybe never 100%, maybe like 95.
Yeah.
Or I trust you 100%
right.
until something happens and then you lose the trust. And I feel like I have always operated in the latter.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
I'm going to trust you a ton until I don't. But that has hurt me at some times. But I think the other way can be hurtful too.
Yeah, I kind of look at it with little different numbers.
Okay.
And so I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I put people at about 65.
Okay.
And if I meet you for the first time, I'm
65%?
Yeah, about 65. And yeah, exactly. I'm a science nerd. What do you, a little more than, almost not quite 2/3.
Yeah.
So I'm 1 point off 2/3. And so the reality of that is because I want to be able to give you trust, engender trust, operate in trust in large ways. But at the same time, there's enough unknown in this circumstance that I'm not going to bet the farm on everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Either I will, but I want to operate in an ecosystem of trust. Mm-hmm. I don't want to operate in an ecosystem of doubt, because that sets up things in a bad way. So yes, not just a little more than half, but a lot more than half. Yeah. But not like I'm not in some way, shape, or form holding anything in reserve or not having a parachute. Yeah. In the midst of it. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and I think in that when you read the passage, Jesus gives full trust to one person, the Father. Yeah. Right?
He calls Peter Satan.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a moment
he's
where
just calling out.
Yeah, like there's real things that happen there. So.
But he's like, I do only what I see the Father doing.
Right.
Like I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. I'm not going to do what somebody else is telling me to do. I'm going to do what the Father tells me.
But Peter's a good example. Peter's telling him at the Passover, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to forsake you. I'm going to be there for you. And does Peter mean it? 100%. Yeah. He's not lying.
But he's a human.
Exactly. He's not false. He's not lying. He's going to come back. He's been one of the greatest men that ever lived.
Yeah. And Peter really wants that.
And Peter really wants it. But Jesus is looking at him like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And the reality is, right now, in this moment, I can't go there with you. I can't go like, you're the guy that's never going to fail. You're the guy. Mm-hmm. But he still loves him, believes in him. He has a parachute for him in the midst of this.
Yep.
And so in that, he doesn't become doubtful and like but he can't go all the way. And it doesn't make it a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. And Jesus doesn't write him off at that
Not
moment.
At all. Yeah. Not at all. This is a more mature way to think about trust, I think. Is that we can operate in it in that way of just like, hey, there are things that all of us are I can't trust that this is going to go in the way you say it's going to go. Mm-hmm. But I still trust you.
Yeah.
And I still like you and I love you and I want you in my life. But I don't have to agree with you on everything. I don't have to believe that this is going to be just how you think it is.
Yeah.
In order to do that.
Yeah.
One of the things too I would just say too is boundaries are not the tool; they're a tool.
That's so good.
We're going to be talking about a lot of other tools in this series, there's an old saying is if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
and I would say don't start just nailing up some boundaries all over the place until
maybe we should get through the whole series.
Maybe get through the
first.
whole series before we do that. But it is a tool in the tool bag.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And this weekend, we're going to be talking about truth in love, speaking truth in love, which I think can be very helpful then in setting boundaries.
Right.
And a lot of other things.
It's actually the counterweight, if you want to think about it.
Okay.
Because a boundary is saying, hey, I can't go there with you. Speaking the truth in love is I am going there with you.
Yeah. That's good.
I am absolutely we're going to share a moment now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go there in the hard places with you.
Yeah, you should put that in your pocket for Sunday.
I might
Yeah.
do that.
But we will see everyone Sunday,
Yep.
hopefully, at one of our campuses. You can find service times on chapel.org, and we hope to see you there. And then we'll join you back here in a conversation next week about truth and love.
Amen.
But it's been really fun. Tammy, it's been fun to
Thanks.
hang out with you today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
All right.